Sonia. Hi, Assalamu alaikum.
Waik salam. So today we'll be talking about the hijab, and we're talking about Mahsa Amani's death. As you may have heard from the news, we will be going into it as we think it's really important to have this discussion. If you do want to join in the discussion, where can you call us?
You can call us on 07779 481822, or you can call us on 01582 481822.
Yes, so we will be talking about the hijab and talking about Mahsa Amani's death, but also in the context of Europe and how the hijab is deemed in an institutional level, but also how our experiences are as well. But before we do that, Sonia, what is the show about?
Okay, our show is a platform for young Muslim girls to speak about any type of current affairs and general topics such as politics, social commentary, and something like Islam, like we are speaking about the hijab today.
Yeah. So we just to note that all opinions and views are our own, and we respect all other opposing view. So we're now going to go to the segment of the show called Thought of the Week. This is just a segment where we just discuss something that we've been thinking about, a reflection, or something that has really touched us throughout the week. So Sonia, what is your thought of the week?
Okay, so my thought of the week is related to a campaign that we started at work, and it is related to the floods in Pakistan. And we basically, in like 2 weeks, I think 1.5 week or something, we started a campaign to raise £10,000, and literally shared and shared and shared, told everyone we knew, and literally, alhamdulillah, we've over in 2 weeks, £10,000, Mariam. We've reached that, and we've gone over the target now as well. So it's over 100%
Wow.
on the Just Giving page. Yeah, it's really good. And people, I get the notifications, and people are still donating even now. And it's so nice to see that people will donate. And, you know, the generosity of people is amazing. But I always say, like, you give whatever you can. Like, there's no competition in charity, and every single penny really, really does count. Um, then my thought of the week is kind of bouncing off that, on like being just about being charitable. I think I said it last week as well, but it's like there's just no greater feeling, because so often we can spend our money on things that we like, shopping, or just something that you want to buy, or something you enjoy, and so on and so on. But that small, like, say you spend £2 on coffee every single day, £2 every day, 5 days a week. Oh, Mariam's covering her face. Do you spend £2 on coffee every day?
I have been for the last week. Not every day, but
Caffeine addiction. We have to get back to that. But yeah, even like, say that, like I'm saying, £2-3 of coffee every day, that's 10, nearly £15, whatever it is. Donate that to charity once, just once, and you've done such an amazing, amazing deed. Like, rewarding aspect of it in our religion, that aspect of it, but also just, you know, that our money's gone towards a good cause. And it was one of my goals for September. Like, I set goals, and it was one of my goals to be more charitable. But I think that's a continuing thing that everyone can do. Like I said, it's never a competition. You don't need to tell anyone you've done it, and you know, don't need to even speak about it if you don't want to speak about it. But it's just for your own self. Just donate, be charitable, be generous.
it's a lovely thought of the week. I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions on that. How has this campaign made you feel as you are the one that's mobilizing it?
I think it's made me feel responsible for it, in a way, because I want to hit that. I wanted to hit that target. But it just made me so happy as well, because it's like I've done a tiny bit of the work of just putting it out there. Everyone else has done the work of actually donating and sharing. So
Mm.
this has made me happy to see how giving people are sometimes. And also, it's actually pushed me to think maybe something we can do more often. So it's not something that you need to just you know, be so scared to do, like, oh, I have to create this page and do this.
Mm.
Like, if you want to go out there and raise money and do campaigns, then do it.
Yeah, I think that's a really valid point, that it doesn't need to take a crisis for you to donate. And so a couple of points there. I think, you know, from the Islamic perspective, we know that when you give charity, it doesn't decrease your wealth. You will always get a return on that, and Allah is the most generous. It might manifest in different ways, but Allah has promised that it never decreases your wealth, and I think that's very comforting. And the second thing is that you mentioned is that whilst you think that you've done a very tiny aspect, and I think you've done a very big thing to even mobilize this, even signposting people to do good is an act of charity because you're helping, you're prompting people to do good. And I think that's a good way to kind of see that maybe you might not have the finances to, give money, but in terms of your efforts, if you make that intention that you're doing it for the sake of Allah, then that's a way of acting for, gaining His pleasure. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think you made a really good point there because you might not have the money to spare. We are in a cost of living crisis right
Mm-hmm.
now. That's a fact. But even like you said, making that intention, or even if you looked at the post and thought, oh, like I really want to donate. I really wish I can donate. Let me bookmark this. Let me save the link and go back to it later. That's all that stuff is still rewarding. Like you're on the right track. You're on the right path. Keep
Absolutely.
going. Yeah.
Okay, that's a very good thought of the
Thanks.
week.
What's your thought of the week,
My
Mariam?
thought of the week is, I think, to be honest, I'm just gonna take you on a little bit.
You cannot do that.
um, I just think that it just reminded me that we always talk about going out your comfort zone, to develop yourself, to gain new skills. But I read a post quite similar to in terms of charity that we usually give charity that is within our comfort zone. And of course, this not to dismiss people's financial circumstances. But if we can afford to, why don't we just give that little bit extra that we feel comfortable about? Obviously, you make um, financial decisions that are not reckless, but just to give a little bit more, maybe cutting down a little bit, like you said. Even for me, coffee is a big thing, and just go out your way to just give that little bit more because when you start to be generous and you're doing it out of your comfort zone, it will become the norm, and that makes your generosity, a little bit bigger. So I think it's quite a profound way of looking at it to give in a way that's outside your comfort zone.
Wow, that's an amazing point, Mariam. Thank you for that.
You're very welcome. If you want to join in our discussion and share your thought of the week, where can you call us?
You can call us on 07779 481822. We're also on Facebook Live where you
We
can
are
comment
indeed.
and watch, and we are on Instagram at sistersspeak.
We'd love to hear your thoughts. Okay, so just delving into the main topic today. So we are going to talk about the hijab, and we will be talking about Mahsa Amani's death. So for those who don't know who Mahsa Amini is, she was a 22-year-old girl who was going to Tehran on September the 13th to the city center. She was confronted by the so-called morality police and was taken to the police station. And at the police station, she was taken to do the re-education classes of why the hijab is mandatory in Iran. Usually these classes take 1 hour, but that was not the case for Massa. The authorities said that she suffered a heart attack and then was taken to hospital nearby and then fell into coma, where she then had another heart attack and died. Um, this story is extremely emotionally charged, personally for me, as I wear the hijab. But her family have actually said that a very opposite story. Her family have said that she suffered the abuse at the hands of the police when she was in their custody. So after 48 hours of this tragic event, there has been protests all over Tehran. There's been movements on social media, and I think it's really important to talk about this and how, on an institutional level, how the hijab is deemed. And we will be talking about even the essence of tokenism when it comes to the hijab. So the first question is, what is your reaction to this?
It is so, so disheartening. Like, it shocks you that this can happen. And I think it really, really gives you like a reflective moment of how you take things for granted. I am not wearing the hijab right now. And if I could have been her in Iran, and who knows what could have happened, that it can happen we are girls, both of us. This is Sister Speak. So I think it's a very
Mm,
like profound moment to think about, like to reflect on that there's girls out there fighting for rights that we have freely in this
mm,
day and age and dying for it. So I think it's so emotional as well. Like, it's just so sad, to be honest, that this is happening. And yeah, I feel like there should be an outcry, and there are protests
mm,
happening right now. There should
mm.
be, everyone should be talking about this right now.
I think you're right in terms of like there should be a movement about this, and I think what's happening is people are conflating religion with the institution in Iran. And, Islamically, murdering anyone is absolutely haram. You cannot do this. And no one is denying that, wearing the hijab is mandatory. Nobody's denying that. However, in Islam, there is no compulsion. So if imposing this kind of rule on the community, and then having a consequence to that, is not exactly the way that it should be. Islam is very fluid, and it empowers us, and it gives us rights. And the whole purpose of it is to make critical decisions, to have intellect, to engage. Allah doesn't increase or decrease without acts of worship. So I think it's really important to make that distinction, that whilst there might be a approach that might misconstrue Islam to its rights, it shouldn't be attributed to a religion. It should not be attributed to religion. And I think this, what the fundamental principle is, or the fundamental notion of this is, it's about the choice of being able to wear what we want to wear without being policed by others. And I think that's the fundamental principle that we want to talk about. So just to make that distinction, we're not denying that the hijab is mandatory. We're talking about the choice that we have in terms of our rights to make that informed decision to wear the hijab, just in any country that we live in. Okay, so reining the conversation back in the context of the UK, do you think we are free to wear the hijab in the UK? Although on an institution level, there is no laws or bills passed that we cannot wear the hijab, there's a denial of not wearing the hijab. Is that making sense? We can, essentially what I'm trying to say, we can wear the hijab in any institution and place, but do you feel as a Muslim woman that you freely can wear the hijab without any implications, without any repercussions? There won't be any prejudices. Do you think this is true to your experience or the experiences around you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I can't speak. I can only speak for myself, and I don't
Yes,
wear a
of course.
hijab. But I think that it's a difficult one, and I hate the fact that the society you're in and the country you're in and the people you're around has an impact on a personal choice. I hate
Yeah,
that, but it is true.
yeah.
And that is something I have to admit. I do believe that certain external influences can have an effect on the decision you make on whether or not to wear a hijab. People will say it shouldn't, it can't. It's true, it shouldn't. I agree with that. But naturally, we live life, we live it in this society, so it will have that effect.
Of
You're
course.
pretending if you think that outside world doesn't, people make the world go around, so the people around you are going to have an effect on you. Yes, if you're amazing, if you're stronger and you can rise above that, and you ignore it, you block it out, and you say my strength in my faith is stronger than that, then good, that's amazing. But I do think that, yeah, like you said, there's no law about specifically about wearing the hijab in this country. But depending on where you are in certain places, there has been hate crimes in the UK. There have been incidents that are racially motivated, targeting women that are visibly Muslim, i.e., wearing the hijab. And actually, there was a Channel 4, I think, oh, sorry, I don't know, just a TV show, a documentary based around this topic. It was a non-Muslim woman who's actually English, so she would then appear typically, quotation mark, typically Muslim, and she was showing her friends. They were in non-Muslim establishments, all the, like, just in a regular small town, and then she wore it, and she goes, they immediately treated her differently. They started calling her name straight away as well. This is people she knew in a village she grew up in, and just because she started wearing the hijab and said, yeah, I'm going to be a practicing Muslim, she did that for the sake of, I think it was for the show, but just to see what would happen. So I think straight away we can't deny that there is repercussions sometimes for ladies wearing hijab in the UK, depending on where you live or what experiences you have. So that there isn't laws, there's nothing stopping you from wearing it here. But if depending on what you're surrounded by, you might feel like there's a lot of pressure and you're going to get a lot of hatred and you're going to Islamophobia, and you're going to find it hard to go about your daily life if you are wearing a hijab.
Yeah, just to kind of elaborate on one of your points. I know you mentioned race, but I think what you are trying to say is that Muslims are not one homogeneous group, and so if people have a prejudice against Muslims when, especially if they visibly look like they're if they're wearing the hijab, then they're visibly Muslim, and then that's where the Islamophobia comes in. But we obviously acknowledge that all Muslims are not the same, and then therefore the way they will present themselves won't be the same, and so therefore the experiences won't be the same as well. I was going to add to your point in terms of, I personally feel that although there is no legislation in place to deny me from wearing the hijab in any institutional level or just in a societal level, I definitely think there's prejudice against the hijab as you try to even mobilize in the labor market or in education settings, as I've personally experienced. And I've seen as well people that are who also wear the hijab experience this too. And we can see through even politics that Islamophobia people face, certain MPs face, just because they announce that they're Muslims. So this is something that's very prevalent within community, and it does permeate. And I think it's really important to discuss because it's an aspect of our identity, and that's where my next question is going to be. How does it make you feel that a section of your identity or your identity is scrutinized for what it is?
What do you mean? Which part of
So
the identity?
so as your religious identity is to be Muslim, and this ideology is negatively perceived, and you therefore will have to face the repercussions of that perception, negative perception. So it's always under scrutiny, it's always policed.
Yeah, well, I think going back to our topic of the young girl in Iran who was
Mm-hmm.
basically the morality police were accused of possibly killing her. I think when we go back to that topic, it makes, and I hate that this happens, and I think we can delve into this, but outsiders looking in are just going to say, well, look, their religion, Islam, it's the Muslims doing this. The Muslims are killing a woman for not wanting to wear the hijab, is what an outsider might think or say. And it's horrible, but a lot of people are going to think that, especially people in the West who don't have knowledge about this topic, or not enough knowledge about this topic, or are ignorant and don't have enough representation. They don't have a woman in their office that can turn around and say, no, actually, it was, well, not a woman, a Muslim, to say, no, actually, it's not the religion, it's the culture there, it's the people there, it's their institutions. And I know this happens all the time, doesn't it? Like they conflate culture or establishments with the religion, and it's not a good look for Islam, and it happens all the time, and it's such a shame. And it's one of the first things when it happens, you think, oh, here we go, now people are going to start thinking that's a religion thing and that women are forced to wear the hijab in our religion. Like we said, it's not that we're not saying it's not mandatory, but there's no right for you to kill someone over this. But yeah, do you agree with me on the point that it's that Western,
Yeah,
outside of you? Yeah.
I definitely think people will misconstrue religion with culture just because how it appears, and they will be quick to condemn the religion because that's what media has perpetuated for so many years, and it just fits their agenda.
Narrative.
Yeah, it just fits their agenda. But I would question, if you are an ally for, Mahsa, which you should be, then is this allyship extended when other European countries put legislation down where minors are not allowed to wear the hijab?
So
Is
exactly, it goes
this
back to the right of a woman being able to choose. If
yes?
you actually genuinely care about a woman's freedom and her right to choose what to wear in her daily life, what to
Mm-hmm.
wear, where's that same expression when women are not allowed to wear the hijab? Like you said, when minors, underage children are forced to not wear the hijab. They said it's not allowed, it's forbidden, because that is a case in certain countries.
Mm-hmm.
And there's countries where, we mentioned how we feel here, but there's other countries, even in Asia, in, the eastern side of the world, where you can't wear a hijab without feeling Islamophobia. So that even by their own government, they make comments, by the institutions. So people don't usually have the same outcry and outpour and protests in the West when these things happen. But in the flip side, they do. So you can see that it's a very pick and choose when you want to care about a woman's right of what to wear.
Absolutely. So, what would you say to these people who have these kind of notions? Do you think it's the onus is on them to go find out what our religion entails, or do you think that we should be doing more to kind of have these discussions and to educate people. Do you think there's a line, or do you think the expectation always falls back on Muslims to be able to present this dialogue, to dispel these misconceptions about religion?
I think that other people should do their research, to be honest, all the time. We all learning. We're all hopefully you can go to school, use the internet. You need to read up on it. Stop spewing things that you don't know is 100% true. If you don't know much about a certain faith group or a sect or a culture or whatever it is, then don't speak about it until you're educated on it. Even for us, for example, on radio, we stick to the facts and what we know, and we will say it's our opinion, but we research the topic as well. It's very important to do that. Yes, as a Muslim, you can, and especially if you're visibly Muslim, it's not your duty, it's not your role, but if you want to educate someone on it, you can. It's amazing if you do, but don't feel like you have to, because it's not fair. It's just to go back on, not only do we have to live that life, but then you also have to keep explaining yourself again and again daily and try and justify yourself. And I don't think that's fair on us.
I think I agree with you. It can be very, very exhausting. So this is the first half of the show. We will be continuing the discussion in the second half. If you do want to join the discussion, you can call us on 07779 481 822. See you after the break. Assalamu alaikum.
This program will continue after the break. Continue listening to Inspire FM. Inspire FM.
Inspire 105.1.
क्या आप अपने कारोबार को बढ़ाना चाहते हैं, कारोबार की तशहीर करना चाहते हैं, तो आज ही इंस्पायर एफएम की सेल्स टीम से राब्ता कीजिए। इंस्पायर एफएम की सेल्स टीम से राब्ते के लिए 01582 481810।
Hello, my name is Nicola and I'm an information and signpost advisor at Luton Food Bank. I'm going to give you quick wins to save energy. Hang up your laundry on warm or windy days. Although, let's be honest, we normally get more windy than warm. Hang your clothes outside rather than tumble drying them or hanging them inside. If you'd like further information and advice, or you or someone you know requires help from Luton Food Bank, please get in touch either through our website or our social media. Thank you.
आइडियल प्रॉपर्टीज 20 साल से आपकी खिदमत में पेश आपकी प्रॉपर्टी की सारी जिम्मेदारी अब हमारी। हम अच्छी तरह से जांच पड़ताल करके किराएदार डालते हैं और आपको किराया बर वक्त गारंटी के साथ दिलवाते हैं। अगर आप प्रॉपर्टी किराए पर लेने या फरोख्त करने का सोच रहे हैं तो आज ही हमारे तजुर्बाकार माहिरीन से राब्ता कीजिए 01582721110 या फिर 01582696050। आइडियल प्रॉपर्टीज, आपकी मदद हमारा एन फरीजा।
Whether you're looking to refresh your current bathroom or enjoy an exciting complete new design, you'll find everything you need at trade prices at Bath & Tile Superstore in Luton, with service with a smile from our super friendly staff. Why not take advantage of our 3D design service? Big names, designer brands at low prices. Bathrooms, tiles, radiators, adhesive, grouting and accessories. Visit the showroom where there's extensive stock to take away or arrange for delivery. That's Bath & Tile Superstore, Cosgrove Way, LU1 1XL. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Instagram for inspiration and updates.
For me, teamwork is hands down the best thing about being in the police. From day one, your team make an effort to understand how you work and encourage you to develop your skills. Having that strong support unit means I can enter work every day knowing I can rely on my team to have my back. We're each other's eyes and ears when we're on the job. I feel I can achieve anything in my uniform, but it's the support of my team that encourage me to be the best officer I can be.
Be one of the 20,000 new officers. Be the difference. Search. Join the police.
Catastrophic floods in Pakistan have affected the lives of over 33 million people. The death toll is rising, and the government has declared a national emergency. Our teams are reaching the areas worst hit with emergency food and humanitarian assistance. As the situation worsens, the people of Pakistan desperately need your support. Donate today by visiting muslimhands.org.uk.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Anisa, and I am bringing a brand new show to Inspire FM called Soul Barriers. In this show, we will address contemporary issues that cause spiritual barriers and prevent us from connecting with Allah. So be sure to tune in to Soul Barriers every Monday from 6 to 7 p.m. only on 105.1 Inspire FM.
From the studios of Inspire FM, the time is now 6:30.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Sister Speak. You're here with me, Maryam, and also joined us in the studio is Sonia. So in the first half of the show, we were talking about the hijab and Mahsa Amini's death. So for those who don't know, Mahsa Amini, she was a 22-year-old girl that essentially, according to Al Jazeera, her family have said that she has been murdered for not wearing the hijab properly. However, in Tehran, when she was there, the authorities have said that she died from a heart attack. So we are discussing this and elaborating on it, and we're going to discuss it on an institution level, how that pans out in Europe as well. So going back to the conversation that we were having, do you think that the prejudices against the hijab manifest in the UK?
Do you mean manifested from the beginning, like it came from here, or do you mean that there is also prejudice?
Do you just think there's a manifestation of it?
I think so. Sometimes, like I mentioned, there is Islamophobia, and also just an ignorance. People don't understand it. I myself used to work in my old workplace. There was a girl there that used to wear a hijab, and there was also another female there who was not a Muslim. And I remember I said, "Oh." I'm using fake names for the purpose of the radio show. I was like, is in Sarah's group. And the woman who's not Muslim said, which one's Sarah again? Is she the one with the headband? And I just, headband. Come on. That is a hijab. You could say scarf, it's a headscarf or a veil, anything, a headband. And she's a grown woman. And it was only Milton Keynes. Like, we're not in the sticks. I just found that shocking. Though you don't know what a hijab is. And I was like, it's a scarf. And she was like, yeah, that's what I mean. And she's like gesturing on her head. And I just thought, you're a woman as well. But just people sometimes don't know. This was just last year. People don't know what the hijab is to this day. So I think a lot of prejudices come from what you don't know, right? You get it wrong and you get stereotypes in your head and all this wrong misinformation because you don't know what it is. But it's not my job to teach you either. So yeah, there is some prejudices.
Do you think, as you mentioned, that she didn't know what it was? Do you think unconscious bias training, which a lot of institutions and workplaces make mandatory, address this issue of having these unconscious biases, essentially?
I didn't even have that. I've not had that training before, and I think that should be mandatory. That's amazing because there are so many unconscious biases. Like you might even listening now not think I know what the hijab is, but there might be other things that you don't know about, and you accidentally are racist or prejudiced towards someone without even realizing. So that would be a good thing. Can you tell us a bit more about that? Because I wasn't sure about that.
So unconscious bias is a training. Usually it happens in higher education settings where you challenge kind of the stereotypes or prejudices that you have within you. So stereotypes, and it makes you critically think that the way you behave with someone, is it according to what you actually see visibly, or is it because of the prejudices you have? So for example, just one prejudice that people have, if someone has tattoos, you automatically will attribute to someone that's going to be a troublemaker. So it really is designed to make you rethink the prejudices that you have or that has been perpetuated in society, and also make you critically think and how you respond to these prejudices, and kind of also, I would say, it makes you unlearn the prejudices that you have. Another thing is a cultural competency. Have you heard of that?
No, I have not. Tell us about
So
it.
cultural competencies, again, is just another way of trying to understand people for who they are, as opposed to, again, relying on our notions of them just on a very surface level. So understanding that people have different experiences, different backgrounds, and the way they are a amalgamation of their experiences and their identity, and they have a very multifaceted identity. And so therefore the way they will act and the way they behave and their thoughts and experiences should be embraced in that sense. So there shouldn't be any force on them to assimilate to kind of to assimilate to a certain way that we as perceived to be correct. So cultural competencies addresses that, and unconscious bias addresses our prejudices. I think personally for me, as I've taken unconscious bias training, I don't think it's enough. It's literally just 1 hour, and I think it really just touches on a surface level. I don't think it delves deeper. I don't think there's even refresher courses to kind of see how much of this progress. So there's no way of measuring it. I feel like it's a tick box exercise. Once you've done it, you can say you've done unconscious bias, but actually, is anyone measuring how much you are an ally, or is anyone measuring have you actually implemented the techniques and tools that you have learned from this unconscious bias training? But I would say that beyond this, do you think that this should be a training scheme that should be implemented in all workplaces?
I think so. Yeah, it's more than education. This stuff can happen anywhere, and all workplaces should be diverse or have some kind of diversity to it. So if you want to avoid getting things wrong, accidentally offending someone or insulting them as well, and it's just an important thing to learn. And like I mentioned, when I was in Milton Keynes, this woman, I'd never seen a hijab or didn't know what it was, didn't know what to call it. Okay, fine. That might be because of the place she lived in, place she went to school in. It just, as she grew older, never came across it. But now you're in a workplace which was diverse, so we have training in place anyway. So let's add those things onto our training. I think that's a good point. Yeah.
Do you think this education should start from a very young age? It should be taught in schools, and
But
why
the
would you think
thing
that?
is, Mariam, it is taught in schools. That's the part I don't understand. Like, it's in the curriculum, all these like different faiths, beliefs, and cultures. I personally learned most of this stuff from school, like anything I know about other religions and so on. So it kind of surprises me when you see young people know nothing about other cultures, for example, and I'm thinking, are you not learning at school this stuff? So maybe it's not in all curriculums. I thought it was. But yeah, it should be mandatory. Like, this kind of stuff is essential. How are you going to get by? We live in a global society now. Like, we're already multicultural in the UK, but it's only getting now, like you said, we're connected through social media and so many other avenues. You can't continue life and not come across someone who isn't the exact same culture and faith as yours. So yeah.
I absolutely agree. And if you do have any thoughts on this, you can call us on 07779481822. Or you can call us directly on the studio on 01582481822. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Personally, for me, I feel that I faced the most Islamophobia through education, and that's why something I'm very passionate about and I discuss quite regularly on the show. And unfortunately, it hasn't been through just people around me in terms of my companions. It's always been from people of authority. And this is something that has really troubled me as a young person growing up, because whilst I live in a town where it's completely diverse, still I had to face this Islamophobia from teachers. And I think this is something that young people might not know how to navigate, because firstly, they're in a vulnerable situation. They've just been profiled for wearing the hijab, or being profiled for just being a Muslim. And then that sense of authority, that the trust that you're supposed to have in these institutions and these people who have these positions is completely dismantled, because you are taught to trust your teachers. You're told that they are the people that are going to take care of you on your school day. They have your best interests. And so then when they are attacking your identity, or if they they're alienating you for who you are, that brings a lot of repercussions. And for me personally, that has really broken my confidence as a young person. And as I've grown up, this wasn't just something exclusive to my primary school age. I unfortunately had to experience this when I was in sixth form, which is actually quite disgusting when I think about it, because this is something that should not occur in any stage. But to be at that level and for it to be completely dismissed whilst I was trying to report it is another tragedy that we need to speak about. So I think what I'm trying to get at, and what question I want to ask you, do you think that Muslims feel that they cannot report to institutions the Islamophobia they feel because they feel that inadequate action will be taken?
Firstly, I'm so sad to hear what you've just said in the first place. Like, to feel in a place where you're supposed to be taken care of almost, and feel like you trust these adults and these individuals, and they come back and you're facing Islamophobia or just anything because of your religion. That's just so, so wrong. And these people should not be in like a school or any type of institution where you're a caregiver or teaching people. How can you teach people to be better when you're not the best yourself? But anyway, that's a whole other story. So you asked, what was it that you asked again?
What did I ask?
You asked about the reporting it. So yeah, often if the institution is Islamophobic and you've gone and said this person's Islamophobic, they won't care. Why would they care? Because they all like that and they believe that that person is okay and it's right for them to do so. But I think that's really bad. And also you should always still make that report, because with these things, if it comes out later on, it might fall back on you who has faced it. Or, well, did she try and report it? Well, yeah, you did. You have to always take all the right steps. Even if you feel like nothing's going to come out of it, you have to try. But I think, yeah, it's a shame to think that, a lot of the times you hear it like, there's no point of reporting it. Nothing's going to happen. No one's going to do anything. True. But if enough people are doing it, we just, might cause some noise, might cause some uproar. In a positive way, I have an example, like, in my old workplace, which I mentioned, which was in Milton Keynes, which isn't really the sticks, like I said, but for some reason in that place, it was like they've never heard of or seen a Muslim before. But there was a few of us there, and when they were there, no one really. It wasn't like a group Jummah, a prayer or anything. But if you did want to pray, people kind of did it like quietly. They just did it during their break time or took 10 minutes out to quickly go and do it. And then I'm really glad that we kind of mobilized together and said, why don't we like ask them to do, and bear in mind, these people didn't really understand what a Friday prayer was. But because we kind of educated them, told them this is what we want and so on. And there was strength in numbers, as you would say, there was about 7 of us. There you go. We got a half an hour slot to do Friday prayers. So that's a completely different example. It's just going to show that even in these Islamophobic quotation mark or these ignorant places, maybe if you have support, you can try and change will happen.
Definitely. And I think I would like to share some positive examples. Even for me, my manager previously, he knew that I prayed religion. I prayed Salah. So I prayed my 5-time prayers as I try to. And he knew that there's something very important. I made that very clear in the very beginning as well, that, my religion is very important to me and I will need time in accordance to the prayer times throughout the day, and it's going to be punctuated. And this is a conversation I had after I got the offer. So I think that's the first step. You need to be quite honest and quite frank with your manager that this is something that you do and it's a requirement of your religion. The second thing is, like you said, it's about education. It's about educating the significance of prayer and how that pans out for us in our religion. And also to explain to them that we cannot pray at any given interval of the day. We have to pray according to a specific time. And I think that is something that isn't really actually talked about specifically to people, especially when you educated them, because they may just assume that you can pray any time of the day. But so it's really important that we have a very clear conversation. In terms of the positive experience, is that I went to a school and I had to deliver a presentation, and rather than me saying to my manager, I need a place to pray, he actually said to me, "Oh, Maryam, should I ask the school to give you a space?" And that really warmed my heart, because I just thought he actually saw his duty of care as a manager to ensure that there was adequate provisions for me to pray. And I think it's really important to have those honest conversations. And I know it's difficult because you might think that, well, my job prospects will be hindered and I won't be able to progress on the job ladder. But you need to think that, what are you actually what are you trying to pursue? If you're trying to pursue a job that doesn't allow you to practice your faith? Is this something that would actually benefit you? And if you're doing something, if you're striving for the sake of Allah and you're finding these challenges, then Allah would 100% provide you in other ways, without a shadow of a doubt. I always make sure that I pray that whatever job place I have, I'm able to practice my faith. And one thing that I tried to do when I was working for this specific department, I made it very not loud, but I made sure that I spoke about my religion quite openly. In fact, I would say on meetings, I have a prayer time, I'm just going to nip out the meeting, because I just saw that if I show that I pray my salah, then the next person that comes to this job will have that space to be able to pray. So I think it's important to start it off, because just by you showing that you have a love for your religion, it will help someone else when they do get the role, and you've created that space. And you can actually see that Sadaqah Jariyah, that you've informed this place and they've created the provision. Even in the office that I used to pray, there wasn't a prayer space, but I just said, can I use this room? I found a room that I thought was suitable for me, and I said, I'm going to pray in that room. Could I? They said yes. So now that's going to be the room that they're going to signpost. Yeah, it's going to signpost people. And beyond that, even just because I made it so visible that I pray, when we were doing any kind of events, it became a consideration. It became a consideration that students are going to come, they may need a prayer provision. So you really don't realize the kind of impact of you exercising your right to religion, because in this country, religion is a protected characteristic. You have a right, according to the Equality Act 2010, to exercise your religion. And so therefore, you have the ability to go say that if someone is denying to pray, then you can show them that this is the law. You're denying me of my right to my ideology, to exercise my ideology. And I understand from the perspective that it is quite daunting to speak and have these conversations, because you don't want to be alienated. It's so exhausting already to go through bureaucracy to get these positions, because you are demonized for practicing one religion, a specific religion. But I think we have to kind of weigh out what our principles are and what our values are. So Sonia, I wanted to ask you, have you ever experienced this kind of process where you felt very exhausted in terms of trying to practice your faith because the institution was making it very difficult for you? And how did you overcome that?
Well, I think the example I gave from my old workplace, it's so wrong to say, but it almost feels like you don't want to practice your faith. You don't want to go and pray because everyone watches you as you walk through the office, that long walk, and oh, is she going where she's going, like little whispers and stuff. And I'm not saying it should affect you, but it naturally does. Like you are gonna remember it. So that was that thing, but then we solved it because we had a group, and that group prayer actually encourages you to pray more, and it became a thing. It was on our calendar, and then the managers are like, "Oh, go on, it's Sonia's time. I'll go." It becomes. I liked that. I loved that a lot. But in general, because of the places I've been in, I don't think I faced barriers like that as such. University was like the opposite for me. Like I said, it was actually more encouraging because they had the ISOC and a space and a prayer room which was easily accessible, very like it was known where it is. Maybe because of the groups I was with that I knew where it was. So I'm blessed to say that luckily I haven't felt that barrier or anything like that yet. What about yourself?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, like in the workplace, it's a very different place. When you're in the labor market, it's very different to education. Education can often be a bubble because you're there to exercise your freedom of speech, as they say in university. You're trying to learn to use that, and you're trying there to kind of cultivate this open-minded approach. And there's just so many thoughts and opinions, and you're here in one place. Whereas when you go to the workplace, it's more about meeting KPIs and meeting business agendas. So it wouldn't be in the forefront to be a leading organization in cultural competency. It would be the priorities are very different. So going back to my question was that because of the transition from education to religion is very different. What would you say to a person that doesn't have the support system in place to advocate for their religion, and how can they navigate those feelings of apprehension to be able to practice their faith?
I think try to make a big deal about it. Like use the policies that are in place to your advantage. These contracts, these policies, these documents, and like you said, Equality Act 2010, they're all there for a reason. You need to actually be able to use it. And it might sound a bit tiring and exhausting and so on, but there's also help out there. Get in touch with places. They might be able to help you. Just make noise, make it loud, write your emails. Emails are so powerful, especially because it's a written trail and you can follow it through as well. So yeah, just use all the paperwork that's there to your advantage and see how you can flip it around to help you.
Absolutely. But I think a step before that is you should try to cultivate positive relationships with your work people, because that's what they're going to see you. They're going to see you as a human, and that's what you want to be. You want to be humanized for who you are. And when you have positive relationships with your work people and they see that you're a team player, they see that you're someone that strives for excellence, then no doubt they will actually be accommodating, and they'll break that down, that barrier between you and them, to understand why you pray, and that's something that's important to you, and they'll be more active listeners. So I think what for me personally, I think is really important when you go into the workplace is to strive for excellence in all that you do, in terms of your character, the way you treat people, the way you even conduct your job. If you applied for this job and you're competent for the job, then be the most excellent in your job. If you see people are going through difficulty in job and you can help them, then help them. Be that person that no one can actually taint you in terms of your character, because you are the one that actually goes out there and is very proactive in making sure that you're helping people, and proactive in making sure that you fulfill your duties by your remit. And I think through that, once you have a character, or you have you put yourself forward in a very good way, then people around you will actually attribute you to your work. Your work will speak for you, as opposed to you taking the first step and asking for, for example, your rights. And which is not to deny that you cannot ask for your rights without doing all these things, but I think strategically and realistically, I think this is the approach we should have. And actually, in our religion, it mandates us to strive for excellence. It's really important, and it really tells us to be emotionally intelligent human beings. What do you think about that?
I think that, Maryam, you hit the nail on the head, and I feel like we are running out of time towards the end of our show. So I'll let you have the last word because you rounded it up perfectly.
Okay, so we are heading to the end of the show. It was really great to have this discussion. And there were some aspects that we didn't get to discuss. So in terms of media and tokenism, and according to Islam.
Assalamu alaikum. In Luton and its surrounding areas, it is now time for Salatul Maghrib.
लुटन और इसके मज़ाफ़ात में नमाज़े मग़रिब का वक्त हुआ चाहता है.
This azan.
Okay, sorry about that. Just to kind of round off the show, we will look forward to have you next week, where we may continue the discussion. Assalamu alaikum.
أشهد أن لا إله